Piston fans, let's do our first video. We're going to talk about Troy Weaver and the moves that he made this offseason. And I will admit with this, that he revived me being a Pistons fan. What he did is what the two previous winning regimes did. Well, not two previous, but I guess I could say two previous regimes did. And Jack McCloskey and Joe Dumars. When Jack McCloskey built that team, they gave Detroit a blueprint that Joe Dumars took in the self-same manner and built the team in that self-same image. Mental toughness, competitiveness. You got some ability to play, whatever, but complementary pieces. But they have to be tough players to win here. Why? Because the city really doesn't have the lights or the glitz and glamour to keep you entertained, if you will. So you're gonna have to be a mentally tough type of person to want to be here, or not even just want to be here, to be here. Otherwise, you're gonna check out, and you're gonna be looking ways to get out of here, or you're gonna be here for one of those contracts. Cause I'm just here. I just came here for the money. I don't care if I win or I lose. So you won't really get their best effort. What Troy Weaver did, he took the blueprint of the bad boys and the going to work crew, and he's creating that team. Now, I listened to the fans when they was talking about all the center stockpiling. Yeah, if you're going to be an effective GM, you got to have something to work with. Now, the previous regime gave him a lot of pieces to work with. Gave him some pieces to work with, and he did some shrewd maneuvering. And if you want it, like I said, for example, what he's doing is he's positioning himself for a big score. The big scores normally entail if your team went to the highest that they can go with the core that they have, and if the player that can get them over the top is made available at the time and they have the assets to get it, you take it. You take it. You take the shot. Right now, I don't think they in a position to make it like a really big splash of a trade. They could, whatever. Yeah, it depends on if your owner, if he wants to stand pat and develop, or he wants to actually get fans into the stadium. Then that's a different deal. If it's a different deal, you're gonna speed up the process, and you're gonna try to get something in here to draw people by name recognition versus development and actually drawing a crowd in by reputation. So, not say reputation, by results. So the going to work crew and the bad boys, they won the crowd over with their hard work and their team effort, and it was like them against the world. It literally was like them against the world. It's interesting enough that the two teams that the Pistons had to go through to win the title was the Lakers. Who's on the top now? The Lakers. If you're going to beat the Lakers, you better be mentally tough. It's not about equal talent. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, Magic Johnson. Enough said. 3 Hall of Famers. 3 of the 50 greatest, right? Off top. That alone could get you a title. Those 3. And then you got the other chemistry with the Michael Coopers and the AC Greens and Byron Scotts and all the other players. You got a core. Never mind Pat Riley and so forth, right? Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant. How you going to beat that? With, I guess you could say, with a Gary Payton and a Karl Malone. How you going to beat that? With what here? The only way you're going to beat a Lakers team with a LeBron James and Anthony Davis is by being mentally tougher than they are. Not just talking. This is hard work. Like, I grind to the bone, just no let up type. Remember how when the Going to Work crew had Mike James and Lindsey Hunter, and they called them the Pit Bulls. They put them in there, and they would just you couldn't get across the half, you couldn't get across the line, and it was getting those. I think it was 8 seconds or less, 10 seconds or less type violations. That you couldn't get the ball across. You know, it's that type of defense. That's the way you will beat the Lakers. You got to have like a tenacious type of defense to beat the Lakers. It don't matter what stars they get. You know, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. You can always beat the Lakers if you're going to have to be mentally tougher than they are. Talent is talent. Lakers will always get the top tier talent. You can always beat the Lakers if you you're going to have to be stronger than they are. Not physically, mentally. Because they're going to have skill on their side. They're going to have the top tier talent on their side. So you're going to have to it's almost like Michigan with the Fab Five going against Duke. You're going to have to beat Duke and be out just outthink them, outsmart them. You're going to have to really get up under their skin and so forth. And that's what Troy Weaver is accumulating with this team. The Isaiah Stewart guy, I love the guy. You look at the guys that they bring in, of course, you can say they're defensive, but they are mentally tough guys. The Josh Jackson pick, that's a pick. That's a nice pick. They all come in. Remember when you look at both the Bad Boys and as well as the Going to Work crew, how they were assembled. They were like some like cast-off teams. What you got here? All right. The previous regime with Eric Stepnowski, I think that's his name. I'm not sure. Stefanski. I don't know who was in charge, him and whoever. And they accumulated some talent, some young talent. Excuse me. They had Kennard. They have Bruce Browns, Kyrie Thomas, Svi Mihalik. Let's see. Sekou, they got some talent here. They Jordan Bone, they brought some pieces in, right? But what Weaver did was like, well, I can take this and I'm going to trade this for get this. It's beautifully done. Not what Weaver did, but the mixture of the both regimes. Well, one was able to build, the other was able to capitalize. And now you can build a team into a combination of the Bad Boys and a Going to Work crew. That's why this latest move, when the questions asked like, why they have all these centers, you have if you use all your young pieces basically to get draft picks, right? You don't have no other assets. You're limited in money, So what do you have? So you stockpile with the centers, and when it comes to like the playoffs out west, they're gonna need as much as big bodies as possibly can. Now you have bargaining chips with those centers. Those they said like 25 different centers that they have. Now you have bargaining because everybody's gonna need a big body. Let's say every contending team is gonna need a big body. So here comes Philly calling. They want to be a contender. So somebody gonna call for Plumlee, and somebody may call for Okafor. So maybe these teams are gonna call for these teams. Just like the Clippers call for Kennard. So we'll give up that draft pick, take it, because they're a contender and they think they need as much. The contenders, with the exception of the Lakers, they honestly think that they need more players versus more toughness. So more shooting, let's say that way. They honestly think they need more scoring than they actually need more toughness. So what Troy Weaver is doing, what he did, I don't know if he talked to Isaiah, I don't know if he talked to Joe, I don't know who he talked to the past, whatever, about how those two teams were assembled, but he's taking the blueprint off of that. With that being said, it's a whole lot easier to win with the Pistons organization than it is with the Lions. It's a whole lot easier to win in the Tigers organization and in the Red Wings organization versus the Lions. the reason why it's so much easier for those three compared to the Lions got no blueprint. The only blueprint that they have of winning was '91. That was based off of what? Barry Sanders and a bunch of castoffs. You had no quarterback per se, so it was off the run game. The Barry Sanders was so electrifying, and the closest they came to that was Calvin Johnson. He was the offense, but the only thing about it is you had to throw him the ball. So it's not like you hand him off the ball and let him do what he does. No, Calvin Johnson, you got to throw him the ball. So, and which is why you won't win, because of the fact that you never seen a team win with a dominant receiver. A dominant receiver. Somebody say, well, Jerry Rice. No, Jerry Rice. It's not that Jerry Rice wasn't dominant. Jerry Rice is not dominant by himself. Jerry Rice is dominant in a system. When you have Deion Taylor, Brent Jones, and Roger Craig, man, please. Who you gonna double? Please. That's why they well anyway, I leave the Lions alone. But you can't win when it's based upon not a team thing. The Lions is not a team. Their structure is not made up for a team. It's made for an individual to succeed because it's about money. So, but the going to work and the Pistons was about a team. That's why there really wasn't no star. You could say Isaiah Thomas was the star. Okay, I'll give you that. You could say, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a top 50. I give you that. But when he was losing, was he that guy? No. Isaiah didn't get his recognition until they started winning. And even with that, he still didn't get his due because I think they were starting to try to raise John Stockton. It was like Magic Johnson, then they tried to raise up like John Stockton and even maybe a Mark Price every now and again, but Isaiah was still number two. But he didn't really get his recognition until they started winning. But they had to develop a team around him. They got the Vinnie Johnson, the Joe Dumars, and I think Vinnie Johnson and Bill Laimbeer came to the Pistons room at the same time. And then they went ahead and they drafted Joe Dumars. And I think the next year, or maybe the year after that, they drafted Dennis Rodman and John Salley in the same draft. And you bring in a veteran like James Edwards, you bring some veterans in, and like Gerald Henderson, and you got a team. That's how you just have you have to be tougher than the Lakers. When they went against the Lakers in the finals for two times, in the 80s, twice when they went against not two times when they went against the Lakers twice. The Phantom Foul one when they actually won. I think that was Kareem's last year. Even with that, they still beat the Lakers. Look what they did. Look what it took for the Lakers to win. A Phantom Foul, and then and all that good stuff. But then the next year they came back and they swept the Lakers. So this is what Troy Weaver is doing. He's stockpiling assets to make bigger. Of course, people could say that now, but when it was asking that question, whenever y'all look at Troy Weaver, put a combination of two GMs together. He has a blueprint of two GMs. That's Jack McCloskey and Joe Dumars. With that being said, Pistons fans,